If you watched the last video, you got the first half of the bracing sequence where we cover bracing your core. If you're somewhat familiar with training, you're probably familiar with bracing your back and bracing your abs. But if this is true and you skipped the last video, I would encourage you to still go back and watch it because we cover some subtleties that are really gonna matter and be huge down the road for Olympic weightlifting. But for now, let's get into this. Even if you've been lifting for the majority of your life, I would not be surprised at all to find out that you've never really thought about your feet while you're lifting. Teaching people about training has been my job for over a decade now, and as many seminars as I've taken and classes that I've gone to, nobody ever told me about feet either, or at least not when it's concerned to lifting heavy weights or generating power. Now, it took me a couple years of obsessing over feet in a completely professional sense. Lots of analyzation and lots of different methods to try to get my athletes to feel and use their feet the right way, but I've come up with some ways for you to start using your feet better today, which will immediately increase the efficiency of your lifts because any improvement here is only going to mean that you generate more power. I don't want you to think that mastering your footwork is easy by any means, but it is incredibly easy to start working on this. Now, this could change because it has absolutely changed before, but at the time that I'm recording this, I think that your feet are the absolute most determining factor for the quality or lack thereof of any lift that you're gonna do. There's a few different factors of footwork that have to be considered while you're lifting, but it starts with a good brace. So let's get into why. Remember what weightlifting is. Weightlifting is the sport of picking up a barbell all the way. The reason this sport exists is because of gravity. This barbell wants to sit on the floor and we want to see if you can put it over your head. Now, to get this job done, you only have 2 points of contact. What that means is you only have 2 things that you can use to manipulate the position of the barbell. Your hands on the bar and your feet on the floor. Okay, now I have never had to tell a lifter, we're 3 out. You're looking strong, you're looking great, but look on this next one, do not forget to put your hands on the barbell. I mean, that's obvious, right? Because how could you possibly pick the barbell up if you're not holding on to it? But you holding on to the barbell is just that. You're just holding on. That's all your hands are actually doing. Now, there are plenty of ways to hold a bar correctly or incorrectly, and we'll get into that in a future video. But for the sake of this video, it's enough that you just don't let go. Now, the only other point of contact that you have to change where the barbell is your feet on the floor. Just like in the last video, we talked about your spine being the only connection from your lower body to your upper body. Your feet are the only connection that your legs have to the floor. Any speed or strength that you're able to generate through a really powerful leg drive is only coming from your ability to push against the floor. And again, the only thing touching the floor is your feet. My absolute favorite thing to hear a new lifter tell me when we're first getting started is that their feet are cramping or that their feet are the most tired thing after a lift, because that is the amount of effort that you should be putting into this. Now, if you remember the graph that I showed in the last episode about muscular effort, I'll show it again here. It's a simple and somewhat bro-science-y way to think about how important bracing is and why you should be doing it as hard as you can. Your back, your abs, and your feet all need to be braced at 100%. It's really easy to understand how bracing your feet relates directly to power if you imagine it like there being an electric current wanting to run from the floor straight up through the ceiling. The quality of your connection to the floor is directly related to your ability to maximize the force that you can create with it. So your foot's connection to the floor is exactly like a power adapter plugging into a wall socket to get the power out of it. Now that you know why it's important, let's talk about how to do it. As far as generating power goes, it would be just as bad for you to only use your heels when you lift as it would be for you to only use your toes. In order to maximize the power that we can generate against the floor, we need to maximize your connection to it. So we need to use your entire foot to brace against the ground. The most stable, braced, and strong position that we can put your foot in against the floor is an arch. And in order to set and hold a good arch on the floor, we'll set each foot like a tripod. Now, going back to that 3-prong power adapter comparison is a really good way to visualize this part. The 3 points of contact that we'll use for your tripod are your big toe, your pinky toe, and your heel. You'll use those 3 points of contact to press into the floor as hard as you can to maintain a strong and balanced arch against the floor. You can practice this while you're standing or when you're sitting down because it's only coming from your feet. As long as your feet are touching the floor, you have no excuse to not be doing this with me for the rest of the video. Press your heel firmly into the ground and raise all of your toes while keeping the ball of your foot on the floor. Spread your toes as wide as you can. Get your big toe and pinky toe as far from each other as you can, and then press them straight down into the floor. Now, it's really common at this point for people to scrunch their toes up inside their shoe because this feels active and you can really feel the arch coming up. But this is not the goal. We want to maintain as much distance as possible between each point of contact for the exact same reason an actual tripod is much stronger when you spread the legs out versus scrunching them up tight and close. Now, to help keep everything spread out, you should be using the pad of your big toe, the pad of your pinky toe, and the pad of your heel to press straight down into the floor. When you do this, you should have an incredibly active arch burning through your entire foot. Now, if you're a person that has naturally high arches, this might not be too tough, but if you're a person that has flat feet, this is gonna be incredibly tedious and challenging and crampy, but with some practice, it will absolutely get better. It's also important to make sure that you're using your feet evenly. It's really common for one side or the other to feel a lot more capable or strong with this, but with some practice, the weaker side can and will catch up. Holding an arch often strengthens your arch and makes you better at holding on to it. And this is something that you can practice throughout the day and you will never be too good at it. So hopefully you'll find yourself thinking about this at random points throughout the day, which will force you to even out your feet, spread out your tripod, clamp down, and hold an active arch on the floor for as long as you possibly can. Now, if you feel comfortable holding on to a static arch, let's see if you can hold on to your arch while moving. This is a very simple test to see how well you can maintain an arch and use it to control your movement. To get the most feedback from this, it's best to do it without shoes. Sit down with your feet under you in a position where you're able to stand straight up without repositioning your body. From here, place your feet flat on the floor and go through the bracing sequence for your tripod. Spread your big toes and pinky toes out as far as you can, and along with your heel, press the pads of each firmly into the ground like you're trying to press through it. You should feel an active arch across your entire foot, and your entire foot should be still and stable. Now, without changing anything, try to use your feet to stand up while maintaining a perfect tripod and a perfect arch. If you feel yourself shift, flatten, favor one side, or let go of any points of contact, sit down and restart this exercise. Once you can successfully stand up, try to sit back down. If you lose your tripod or arch by leaning out, back, in, or forward, stand back up, reset, and start over. Your foot should be incredibly flat, stable, and there should be literally no movement at all coming from it. Remember that if you brace something with 100% effort, you take away any chance for movement. Try to sit up and down multiple times, and if you get a good hang for that, set your back and your abs and try to repeat this exercise, moving up and down while maintaining all 3 of your braces. Just like in the last video, this is about as simple as it gets, but that's the point. We're trying to establish your ability to brace really, really well before we get into the harder stuff. Remember, bracing is one of the only things about your lift that you can control, and these simple exercises will very quickly highlight any holes in your game. And trust me, if you struggle with any aspect of bracing, you are not going to be able to play this sport as well as you could. As far as your feet go, you can be testing and strengthening your arches all day long, all the time. I'm doing it right now. If it crosses your mind, set your feet and hold an active arch for as long as you're able to. Now that you know how to brace, we're gonna start getting into how to use it. Up next, we're gonna be covering the principles of aim and how you can use those principles to start perfecting your lifts. But in the meantime, keep working on your bracing sequences because it does not matter how well you aim if you weren't braced well from the get-go.